It was a gray, chilly morning in the small town of Ashford, the kind of place where everyone knew each other, or at least thought they did. The streets were still damp from the night's rain, and the fog had barely begun to lift. At the corner of Main and Willow sat a modest little diner called Sunny Side Up, with flickering neon lights and the smell of fresh coffee drifting out through the cracks in the windows. Inside, 27-year-old Emma Cartwright tied her apron and tucked a pencil behind her ear, her fourth day in a row working the early shift. She'd been coming in at 6 a.m. sharp since her mom's cancer treatments had drained most of their savings. The bills were piling up fast, and her younger brother was still in school. Emma didn't complain, though. She was the kind of person who smiled through it, not because life was easy, but because she refused to let it make her bitter. That morning was quiet. A few regulars nursed their coffees while flipping through worn newspapers. Emma moved from table to table, topping off mugs and taking down orders like clockwork. But then, the bell above the door jingled, and someone new stepped inside. He was tall, maybe in his mid-50s, with a bit of gray in his beard and deep lines on his face. His jacket looked worn, like it had been through one too many storms. He walked slowly, almost cautiously, and sat in the farthest booth, by the window. Emma approached with her usual warmth. "Morning, sir. Can I get you started with some coffee?" He nodded. "Yes, please. And, maybe just the breakfast special. Nothing fancy." She smiled and jotted it down. "Coming right up." When she brought his plate, eggs, toast, hash browns, he thanked her quietly. But something about the way he sat, the way he kept glancing at the door, made her think he wasn't just here for a meal. 15 minutes later, he was finished. Emma brought the check, and that's when things got awkward. The man pulled out a credit card and handed it over. She swiped it. Declined. She tried again. Still declined. The man's face flushed. He looked into his wallet, found nothing but an old receipt and a $5 bill. I thought I had enough. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Emma raised a hand gently. "It's okay. Really. Don't worry about it. I can come back and pay tomorrow, I promise." She shook her head with a kind smile. "No need. We've all had days like that. Breakfast is on me." He looked stunned. "You do that? For a stranger?" Emma nodded. "It's just eggs and toast. You look like you needed a warm meal more than I needed a few bucks." For a long moment, he stared at her, like she had reminded him of something long forgotten. Then, with tears glistening faintly in his eyes, he whispered, "Thank you. I won't forget this." And then he left. Emma watched him go, never once imagining that her world was about to change. The next morning started off like any other. The same bell jingled, the same smell of coffee filled the air. Emma wiped down counters, cracked jokes with the regulars, and tried to ignore the gnawing anxiety about her mom's next hospital visit. But around 10 a.m., something happened that turned heads. Not one, not two, but 3 luxury cars pulled up right outside the diner. First came a gleaming black Rolls-Royce Phantom, its paint catching the morning sun like glass. Then a deep navy Bentley Continental GT, followed by a bright red Ferrari 812 Superfast, purring like a wildcat outside a zoo. The small diner fell silent. Everyone, customers and staff alike, turned to the windows, jaws dropping. Out stepped 3 people, a man in a charcoal suit, a woman in a white trench coat, and a younger man who looked barely 30, wearing designer sunglasses and holding a tablet. They walked into the diner like they owned the place. Emma, wiping her hands nervously on her apron, approached the counter. "Can I help you?" The woman stepped forward. "Are you Emma Cartwright?" Emma blinked. "Yes." The woman smiled and handed over a white envelope. "Our father was here yesterday." You paid for his breakfast when his card declined. Emma's stomach dropped. Wait, he was your... The man in the suit nodded. He's not just our father. He's Richard Belmont, CEO of Belmont Holdings. Emma's mouth went dry. Belmont, as in the multi-billion-dollar investment company? The younger man chuckled. That's the one. He was traveling undercover yesterday, doing one of his walk in the shoes of the forgotten kind of days. Doesn't like people knowing who he is. Emma shook her head in disbelief. So he was testing people? No, the woman said. He was learning about them. He always says you see people's truth when they think no one's watching. Emma slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a note, handwritten in blue ink. Emma, thank you for reminding me that humanity still exists in this fast-moving world. You didn't know who I was, and yet you gave without hesitation. That matters more than money ever will. Let me help you now. R.B. Below the note was a check for $50,000. Emma gasped. This has to be a mistake. The man in the suit shook his head. It isn't. That's just the beginning. He handed her a second envelope, this one larger. Inside it were documents. You see, the woman said gently, our father owns several properties in small towns across the country. One of them is this diner. Emma's eyes widened. Wait, what? He bought it a few years ago through a holding company. No one knew. He wants you to manage it now, full control, with a salary 3 times what you're making now. No strings attached. Emma covered her mouth with her hands. The tears came faster than she could stop them. You're giving me the diner? We're giving you a future, Emma. Because you gave our father dignity when he had none. You saw him as a human being, not a burden. That's rare. And that's the kind of person this world needs more of. That evening, Emma sat outside the diner, the sun dipping below the town's old brick buildings, casting a warm golden glow over everything. The diner looked the same, but everything felt different. For the first time in years, the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. She called her mom, who cried over the phone. Her brother came running down from school with the biggest smile on his face. And the customers? They clapped, cheered, and started a kindness jar by the register, just because. Within weeks, Sunny Side Up was buzzing with new energy. A local contractor fixed the roof for free. A retired painter volunteered to give the walls a fresh look. Strangers paid for each other's meals. The town had been touched by a spark, and it all started with a simple plate of eggs and toast. Sometimes, we think the world only changes with grand gestures and headlines. But more often than not, it's the quiet, selfless moments. The ones that no one sees, that shape everything. Emma didn't ask for recognition. She didn't give to get. But what she gave, kindness, dignity, humanity, came back to her in ways she never imagined. And now, every morning, when she opens the diner, she remembers that moment. That one simple choice. Because that's the power of kindness. And you never know who's sitting across from you, or how much they needed to be seen.